Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell from the title, today is a very big day for me. I have made the decision to throw away all of my foundation. Just get rid of it. Don't need it anymore. None of it. Bye, Felicia. If you've been following my channel for a while now, then you probably already know that about maybe last summertime, just a bit less than a year ago, I just kind of stopped wearing foundation completely. It wasn't like a conscious decision, like I'm gonna stop wearing foundation, but it was around summertime and I was trying to find a way to make like my makeup wear just a little bit lighter. So instead of wearing a full face of foundation, I was just kind of spot concealing, then powdering and contouring and still doing my eyes the same way, and I just really liked the way that it looked and I preferred the way that it felt on my skin. It didn't feel as heavy. The plan was that I probably would have started wearing it again in winter because that's generally where you tend to wear heavier makeup because it's around like holiday season. You want to go that full glam, and also you're not worried about with the hot weather your makeup just kind of melting off. But it got to wintertime and I still just didn't feel the need to put on foundation. I was still just enjoying the way that my skin was looking with only concealer, so my foundations have all just been sitting there, just taking up space. And I just thought to myself, like, why am I keeping them? If I haven't felt the need to use them in almost a year, then I'm probably not going to for then a relatively long amount of time after that. So they're probably going to start going off. They're going to, maybe, who knows? I don't know if foundations go moldy, but I really don't want to keep them sitting there until I figure that out. So I'm just gonna get rid of them. I have been told too many times in my life that I have a tendency to hold on to things for longer than is necessary, and this is not in like the relationship sense that everybody always assumes it is, but literally I hold on to items that I've bought for far too long. Like I had this one pair of trainers that I bought once and I wore those things to death, to the point that like my big toe was poking out the front, and for a good 4 months after that, I still convinced myself that if I wore them with black socks, nobody would notice. Everybody noticed. But I just couldn't throw them away because I had this kind of sentimental attachment. I was like, oh, I bought them on holiday and I spent so much money on them and I just can't. The moral of the story is I need to just, when things have had their time, I need to just get rid of them. Because I do it with clothes as well. My style changes so much, it evolves, and I enjoy different things, and then I just keep items that I've bought from like 5 years ago because I'm like, my style's different, but I could probably incorporate this item of clothing into my new style. And sometimes, on the odd occasion, that works, but 90% of the time I'm just stuck with clothes that I haven't worn since I was like 15. So I don't know why I play myself like this. So yes, today in this video, we shall be throwing away all my foundations. I'm going to take them all out. I'm going to show you each of the different foundations I have, talk about how I enjoyed it, why I bought it, what I liked and disliked about it, whether I would recommend it to you. And then, despite all of that, even if I tell you it's the best foundation in the world, I'm still going to throw it away. So just take everything with a pinch of salt. Do with this information what you will. But I hope you enjoyed this video. This is by no means me telling you that you need to throw away your foundation. If you enjoy wearing foundation, continue to wear it. It looks bomb on some people like it. I personally am just kind of not feeling it right now. I might get back into it at a later stage of my life. I don't know. I don't really plan my life that far in advance. We'll see. So yeah, if you do enjoy coming along on this little mini journey with me, make sure that you subscribe to my channel to not miss future uploads, and like this video to let me know, and comment down below if you decide to do the same. Just get rid of all your foundations. Just throw them to the wind, but don't literally do that, because if you throw them out a window, you probably will hit someone and that could get messy. But yeah, let's just jump right into it and throw away some foundation. Okay, so into the drawer. Why you get out of the way? This is not about you. So these are all of my foundations. These ones here are just in little bowls because they're sample sizes. Because you guys know already, I am a cheap bitch and I'm not about to commit to buying some expensive ass product before I've tried it out. You probably noticed when looking at all these foundations next to each other, there is quite a variance in colour. I mean, it's really no surprise to anyone that finding foundations or just complexion products in general for women of colour is such a bitch. But we'll talk more about that later. So this is the first foundation. I'm going to talk about each of them individually, like I said, but I'm not doing it in any like particular order. I'm just going to grab one, talk about it for a second and throw it. So anyway, this is the first foundation. This is the Rimmel Match Perfection Invisible Coverage Visibly Perfected Skin Foundation in the shade Deep Mocha. I think this is probably one of the I think this is maybe the second foundation in my life that I'd ever bought after the Maybelline Dream Matte Mousse. And if you've watched my How I Did My Makeup in School challenge, you know why. That foundation is just not in the mix anymore. So I tried out that. That did not end well. So then I was kind of on the hunt for something new. I wanted to try something liquid because I was seeing everyone using all these liquid foundations and I was like, that is the way to go. So I ended up with this because I literally just walked into Superdrug and I just looked at every single brand and this was the only one that was actually kind of my skin color. So I just picked this up and went. At this point, I didn't know anything about like my skin type, my undertone, anything like that. I didn't really know what I was looking for. I was just like, I need something that actually looks like my skin. And this was pretty much all there was. So, and I won't lie, I was so happy when I got this. I was putting this on like, oh my god, it's literally my skin in a bottle. It's like the perfect shade for me. And now I'm looking at it like, are you sure about that? That being said though, this was not a terrible foundation. It actually had very decent coverage. The finish was nice. I will say for oily skin, it's not the best. It doesn't last the best on oily skin. You will get shiny and oily and greasy quite quickly, but it doesn't, when your oils start to come through, it doesn't like break apart and start to look really cakey. So I will say that this is not a terrible foundation. And for what I think it was like £7 or £8, it's not terrible. They need a wider shade range because this was the darkest shade that I found and it just so happened to be my skin. I will say, obviously, people are darker than me, so do they not exist? Do you not see them? Do you not see colour? Probably one of those kind of things. But yeah, this is not a terrible foundation. Just don't do what I used to do and like pump it out with your hands and just rub it in like moisturiser and then slap a load of powder on your face and then rub that in like moisturizer on top of it. Probably not the best technique. If you have oily skin, you might be able to get it to work better for you if you don't do that. Next! Oh wow, how did I miss that? I'm a mess. I'm just not going to try and do that anymore. Next I'm going to talk about two foundations. They kind of come together like a package deal. This is the Clinique Beyond Perfecting Foundation and Concealer in the shade... what is the shade? The darkest one. Nothing new there. And this is the Clinique Chubby in the Nude Foundation Stick in the shade, the second to darkest one. Ample Umber, apparently. So this one, the Clinique one, I bought because at the time I was using that Rimmel one. It was not going that well for me. At that point, I still didn't really understand my skin type that much. I just knew that my face was very shiny. And I thought that meant... I sort of had started to find out about skin type, so I was like, maybe I have oily skin. No fucking duh. Anyway, I saw an advert for this and it was like, oh, this is really matte and it's like high coverage and like foundation and concealer in one. And the cheap bitch in my head was like, yes, then you don't have to buy two products. Just get this one. So I went to the shop and I bought this and they had this like deal on. Clinique tends to do this a lot where you buy a certain amount of products or you spend a certain amount of money and you get this little like goodie bag of free sample size stuff. So obviously being a dumb consumer, that is what I did. And I bought this because I thought if I buy it in a slightly lighter shade, I could use it like under the eye as concealer. At that point, I wasn't into the really whole highlighting thing. I was like, okay, just a slightly lighter shade of foundation under the eyes. And that will stop me looking somewhat flat. So I got this one. It's not terrible. I wouldn't use it all over my face because I know that just stick foundations in general, they're just, them and oily skin are just not friends. So this foundation I did really like. From off the bat, the first time I applied it, I realised that it was not quite right. The undertone of this is way too warm. So every time I wear this, I have to like mix it with green concealer to colour correct it. But then the problem with doing that is if I accidentally add too much green concealer, it neutralises it too much and makes it literally grey. But I don't realise that until after I've left the house, and by that point, it's too late. Apart from the shade not being great, leaving something to be desired, the foundation itself I actually did really like. It has really good coverage, it stays quite nicely on oily skin, and I do quite like the large doe foot applicator because you can just stripe it Although personally I do prefer a pump because I feel like then I get more even measurements and then I know how much I'm using every time. But I do still like this. I've never really used it under the eye. I don't know if the coverage is that great to be able to call it a concealer, proper concealer, but this is a really good foundation. This, for the under eyes, yeah, that just didn't, I don't know what I was thinking at the time, because this does not have enough coverage. I thought it would be like one of those cute things where you could just like throw it on under the eye, like a little bit of liquid highlighter, some liquid blush, set your face lightly with powder, and just like quickly run out the house and be like, makeup? What is that? I don't even know her. But instead, this just pretty much did nothing. I would apply it under the eye and be like, oh yeah, this is gonna be really nice, it's a nice color, it has decent coverage, and then I would blend it out and it would just disappear. But despite the fact that it had disappeared, when I'd then go and set it with powder, it just made my under eyes look really creased and really cakey and kind of disgusting. So I don't really know what happened there. So the Clinique, that foundation, that other one I was just talking about, that one I would recommend. This one, not so much. Like, the pricing between them is very similar, and I feel like you get more product with the other one, so just go with that. Can we all just please appreciate how I managed to salvage that face into this face without completely starting over again? Thank you. Next we have the cult favorite everybody raves about, the MAC Studio Fix Fluid. This is the shade NW45, which is not my shade, but there is a reason for that. I don't know if I have or haven't mentioned this on my channel before, but I'm just not really a MAC kind of person. I know how much everybody raves about MAC and they're like, oh my god, MAC's like the best thing in the world, and oh my god, but I've just never been infatuated with it. Like, I've never walked into a MAC shop and been excited by anything. I've never felt compelled to buy anything in MAC. I don't know if it's just because their packaging is all that like sleek black, so nothing like catches your eye, but even when I go in and then look at the products up close, even then I'm just like, why am I going to pay so much money for something that doesn't excite me? Like, if I walk into NYX, if I walk past NYX, my eye will catch something, I will run in there, and then before you know it, I bought like 10 different things. But with MAC, I feel like it's all, I've seen it before. I can understand that back in its heyday, MAC would have been the shit, because it was like, that kind of really professional grade makeup wouldn't have been as accessible to consumers, and MAC kind of made that happen. But now I think the makeup industry is so saturated that you can get all of that stuff literally everywhere, and probably for a lot cheaper. So I feel like, I don't know, MAC's, not that it's had its time, but it's not as innovative as it maybe once had been seen to be. If this makes any kind of sense, you know what I mean. I'm not trying to say that their products are bad in any way, because obviously I've seen a lot of people use them and they look really good. It's just not somewhere that I feel compelled to spend my money. So having said all of that, you're probably wondering, well, bitch, why the fuck do you have this foundation then? I did not buy this. It was actually given to me. One of my friends had actually bought this for herself and then realised that it wasn't quite the right shade for her, and then she figured that I was more a closer shade match to this, so she was like, oh, you can just have this. And I'm never one to pass up anything free, so I was like, you know what, I'm not a MAC ass bitch, but I'll give it a shot, I'll try it. I was still on the hunt at this point for a really good foundation for my skin, so I was like, everyone raves about this foundation, I might as well try it. And I will say it is a good foundation. It has very good coverage, it's easy to blend, it has a nice finish on the skin, it has pretty decent staying power. The thing that threw me off though was the smell. When she first gave it to me and I first opened it, I literally was like, what a fake ass friend. She's just given me a gone off foundation. Like, it smells so bad. And then after that, I went through a little phase of every time I pass a MAC store, I would run it in and smell their Studio Fix fluids just to see if they smelled the same as mine, to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But no, they all smell that bad. What is going... MAC, what is in this foundation? Why does it smell like gone off paint? Like, I don't understand. This literally smells like something that I would paint my bedroom walls with. Why would I want to put that on my face? And again, the shade match for this for me is just not quite perfect. This is an NW45, which means it's more warm toned, where I have slightly cooler toned skin. So I think if I were to try this again, I would need to get maybe an NC45, but I'm not about to go out and buy it. So, I mean, if anyone wants to donate me, I'm not going to say no. This next foundation. Kat Von D. Why did you have to play me? This little pot here is a sample size that I have of the Kat Von D Lock-It foundation. I do not remember which shade it is. I think it might be like Deep 71 or something like that. Anyway, the Kat Von D foundation. This is truly one of those the internet made me do it type things. I'm not going to say the internet made me buy it because I didn't actually buy it, but the internet led me to believe that this was going to be the holy grail foundation for my oily skin. Everyone was like, this foundation is just like how much percentage of pure pigment, so the coverage is like insane, and it's like spackle. When you put it on your skin, it locks in place, hence the name. I wore this foundation for 7,500 hours and it didn't move and I didn't have to touch up once and I looked amazing. So I was like, well then, bitch, I'ma have to have that. But then I came to find that Kat Von D was not actually sold in England at that time, so I searched everywhere to try and find this foundation. I fully was gonna go to some next American site to get it and probably pay like a whole month's wages just for shipping to get it and then buy it online. I wouldn't know the shades, then it would get here and it would be wrong. So I put it off and I put it off. I was like, you know what, maybe I don't need this foundation. You know, my life has gone on pretty fine before I had it. You know, it will go on after this foundation. It's fine. But then Kat Von D came to England. I ran myself down to Debenhams. Well, not literally ran because I had to get a significant number of buses and trains and public transport to get there. But I took myself down to that Kat Von D counter and I got them to shade match me, and I spoke to all the girls at the counter, and I looked at all the other stuff on that display, and I was like, yes, Kat did that. These eyeshadows, this all looks bomb, but I'm here for this one foundation and I am not leaving without it. I got my little pot and I was like to the girls at the counter, you guys are going to see me next week because I'm going to be back to just buy all of your stock of this foundation, so get ready. I put this foundation on and I just felt like, I know I'd been lied to. Like, I thought I'll give it a proper wear test and I'll wear it on a night out. Because if your makeup survives for a night out, then you know that shit is good, okay? I put it on and I was like, I mean, the shade match is good, but the coverage is still leaving a little bit to be desired. And I thought maybe I'm just not applying enough. So I started layering on more. But I was still seeing blemishes through that other foundations I've used had covered more easily. So at that point I was just like, okay, well, I'll stick it out, I'll see what it can do. If it lasts on my oily skin, then I can survive with a little bit less coverage. I really don't mind. The coverage was there. The staying power was good. I will give it that. The staying power was good. I didn't get overly oily. I did get a little bit oily. Some people lied to me and tried to tell me that I wasn't going to get oily at all. That was not true. I did get a little bit oily. The foundation did hold up. It didn't break apart or get cakey or anything, but something I'd never experienced before, it actually made my skin look dry. And as an extremely oily person, that's not something I've ever had to deal with before. I was looking at my skin and I was like, is it literally sucking oil out of my pores? I don't understand why I look so dry right now. Like, this area here, kind of around my nose, under eye area, had never looked so creased in my entire life. And because it was so drying, it then just emphasized every single little bit of texture on my skin. And the whole thing, it wasn't cute. I mean, from afar, maybe I looked alright, but looking at myself up close, I just didn't like how it looked. And to me, it just kind of wasn't worth it for the amount of money that I knew the whole bottle would be. I was like, I don't feel like this is worth me spending the money. I'm not going to reach for it as much because I don't like the finish of it. The shade match is good, and the shade range of the foundation is very good. I will say that. But I don't know, it just didn't really agree with my skin, so I don't know if I was just using something else that everybody else wasn't using, or cat just decided to personally attack me. I don't know, but that foundation just didn't work for me. On to another little sample size pot, because every time I go to department stores, I can never just pick up one sample. I literally just have to go to every single counter and collect as many samples of every single thing that I possibly can, even if it's not a product I've ever shown any sort of interest in. I just feel like, to me, it's the only way. It's just economical to do so. I mean, they're giving it away. You may as well take it. Anyway, this is the Rich Liquid Foundation by Ilamesca. This is actually a foundation I'd never heard of before until I went to the counter. I had heard of their other foundation, the Skin Base, and I do know someone that's used that and really liked it. This is essentially the high coverage version of that foundation. And when they say high coverage, they are not kidding. This bitch packs a punch. This foundation I really like. If you are looking for that full coverage, this is gonna give you that. I can't say how well it lasts on oily skin all day and night, because unfortunately I haven't had a chance to wear it because this shade is not quite right for me, and because it is so full coverage, it's not even possible to kind of disguise that. Like, once you put it on and you see it's the wrong shade, there's no way getting around that. So I tested it out at home and I did like the finish of it. I just didn't dare to venture outside of my house in it, so I can't tell you how well it lasted all day. But Ilamesca is a brand I feel like that is very much slept on, and they have a very good shade range. I don't know exactly what shade this is because the tub it's completely clear. But this foundation, very good. I'm just obviously not keeping it, but I do recommend. And continuing with the positives, because I feel like this video has been a lot more negative than I originally anticipated it to be, let's talk about the foundation that everybody and their cousin's grandma's dog was talking about. This is the Milani Conceal and Perfect 2-in-1 foundation and concealer. This foundation, when it first dropped, was everywhere, and I mean everywhere on YouTube. And for very good reason. She is that bitch. This, my friends, is a very good foundation. This is one of my all-time favorite foundations, and it's Milani. It's such a good price. I think this maybe was like a tenner, maybe even less than that, maybe slightly more. The only thing I will say, shade range. She's not cute. This is shade 14, Golden Toffee. This is the darkest shade. That there are 14 shades. One of them is this dark. One of them is this dark, the colour of, I don't know if you can see the colour of this wood. Then the rest of them are pretty much like that. But the foundation itself, this in comparison to the Clinique one that said foundation and concealer, I would say this one is better. This one has higher coverage. The finish of it is so nice. You put it on and you're like, that literally covered everything, but it still looks like my skin. Even when you powder it down, and I use a lot of powder, this foundation still, it doesn't cake up, it doesn't look dry, it doesn't emphasize texture, and it lasts on oily skin. I wore this foundation on New Year's. That is the true test, and she held up. I didn't even think I had to touch up once. She was that bitch. I lived in this foundation when I first got it. For the purpose of the video, I shook it up a little bit more just so that it kind of covered the sides, but this foundation is pretty much as good as dead. I just didn't want to throw it away yet, because also the packaging is just really nice. I will say though that having it sitting in my drawer for so long unused, I've noticed that even in the bottle, it's kind of oxidized. It's a lot more orange than it was when I first bought it. And that is strange to me, because I know sometimes when you leave things in bottles out in the sun kind of affects them. But as you saw, it's been in my drawer. It's been in darkness. It's only kind of gotten that sunlight when I open and close the drawer, but it's not that much. So for it to just have oxidized while it's in the bottle, I would say be careful of that. Normally I don't pay that much mind to kind of shelf lives of makeup products, which you really should, but this says 12 months and I probably would try and stick to that, otherwise it's just going to start oxidizing and you're going to put it on and it's going to look orange. But because it is cheaper, I think you can kind of afford to replace it more often, and also you're going to be wearing it that much because it just is that bomber foundation. I mean, it's worked really well on my oily skin. I've even seen people with hella dry skin use it and it still looked great. So I think this is a very universal foundation. Like, everyone can enjoy it, and it doesn't feel, even though it's so full coverage and it comes out quite thick, it doesn't feel heavy on the skin at all. You still feel like your skin can breathe. So defo would recommend this. Now, if you like the sound of that foundation, but you're just a little bit more of a high-end hoe by heart, then Lancome. She did that. Lancome? Let me just not try and be bougie in French and just say Lancome because that's how I've always pronounced it. This is the Lancome Teint Idole Extra 24-Hour Wear and Comfort Retouch Free Divine Perfection SPF 15 Foundation. I have the shade 14. This is far too dark. But again, I did not buy this. This was given to me. Actually by the same friend that gave me the MAC one. This girl just has money to throw away. Why is she just giving me all these expensive foundations? Anyway, she gave this foundation to me for the exact same reason as she gave me the MAC one, in that she thought that it was not quite the right shade for her. But then she gave it to me and realised it was the right shade for her, so then she went and bought herself another one in this exact shade. But that's none of my business. This shade is actually slightly too dark and cool toned for me, so I actually just, when I first got it, I was actually just using it as contour, as liquid contour. When I was still wearing foundation, I'd like to mix my foundations and use different shades to do my highlight and contour so they'd all blend together and look really seamless. And this is what I was using for my contour. And then I just started seeing it blowing up on YouTube and everyone was using it, saying it was really good. So I was like, you know what, I need to try this all over my face. So naturally, I went and got a little sample in my actual shade. This is shade 13. So actually only one shade up. So maybe in winter I could probably get away with this, but I just don't want to risk it. And also I just feel kind of bougie having this little bottle, so I just kept it anyway. Being a cheap assho, I would say if there was one foundation that I would not mind maybe splashing a little bit more cash on, it would be this. This way and not that way. It would be this foundation. This foundation is bomb. It has got coverage, it has got wear time, it's see, I don't even have words. It has high coverage without being cakey, without looking dry. It has a really nice natural finish. It dries down, so you could, even if you had maybe drier skin, you could maybe use it without setting it with powder, but then if you do set it with powder, it still doesn't look cakey and dry and disgusting. She lasts all day. She does not break apart. The shade range is there. She's just all of it and in one. And on top of that, it smells so nice. It has a really like light, fresh scent. It just smells expensive, and you look at this and you feel it. It's weighted. You just feel bougie having this. It's got that little, on the lid there, I don't know if you can see it, that little Lancome, that little engraving there. She's a bit dirty, just ignore that. But this foundation, I feel bad kind of parting ways with it. Maybe I will just keep it for sentimental purposes. No, that's not that. See what I mean about me just wanting to hold on to things for too long. I need to get rid of it. I need to get rid of you as well. I will just throw in there though, another good thing about getting sample size products is they're really good for travel. If you don't want to bring that whole bottle with you, if you've only got hand luggage, you've got a limited amount of space in your luggage, or you don't want to risk breaking the bottle, just get a little sample one. Why not? The next foundation is the Maybelline Fit Me foundation. This is the matte and poreless one, again in the wrong shade. The thing about this foundation, and I feel like just kind of Maybelline complexion products in general, is that the complexions just aren't there. It's so hard to find Maybelline complexion products for darker skin, and I'm gonna be completely honest here, the only reason I bought this foundation was because this was the first time I'd ever seen it in the store in a shade that was darker than beige, so I bought it for the novelty. That is literally the only reason I bought it. I knew full well that this was not my colour, but I was like, oh my god, it's here. I may never see this again. I need to just have my money now. In hindsight, probably not the best idea, but on the bright side, this foundation is not terrible. It has decent coverage, it's a decent price. I mean, I don't know why they really label it as a matte foundation, because it could be better, it could last better on the oily skin that it's targeted as, but it is a nice foundation. I will say to me, personally, it did feel a little bit heavy on the skin. Like when I was wearing it, I felt like I was wearing makeup, but it lasted pretty okay and it wasn't terrible. I'm kind of going through the same sort of love-hate relationship with the Fit Me Concealer right now, because like last week was the first time I'd ever seen it installed in a shade that was, excuse me, actually dark enough for me, so I just bought it and I'm wearing it underneath my eyes right now. And what I will say about both of them is that they're not terrible, but they're, how can I say it? The only way I can really describe them, they're the type of product that you would wear to get the job done when you don't want to waste your good stuff. Like, I would wear this foundation and concealer because it was there, but if I was going out somewhere and I wanted to make sure that I looked really good, these, I wouldn't reach for them. Moving back to the high-end samples, here I have 2 different shades of the Estee Lauder Double Wear Foundation, another one that everybody's cousin's grandma's dog was talking about on the internet. But this one went a lot better than the Kat Von D one. They both had the same claims and they were both kind of like toe-to-toe in competition for each other. Everybody said that they both were like insane high coverage, they both extreme long wear time, they both lasted really well on oily skin, so obviously I wanted to try them both. This one, however, obviously because it's Estee Lauder, is slightly more expensive and it is a slightly thinner formula. So I think the point was that it was meant to be like a thinner formula but intense pigmentation, so you still get the coverage. I did get the thin formula part of it, but for me, again, the coverage just wasn't what I was expecting it to be. I mean, it wasn't terrible. I don't know if it was maybe just like a mental thing. I was expecting it to be immediately such mind-blowing coverage that then as soon as I applied it and it kind of wasn't, I just felt overly disappointed. Whereas I was kind of comparing it to the Milani one. I would put that on and the coverage was immediately there. Whereas with this, I don't know if it was because the formula was so thin or it was the way I was applying it, but I felt like I had to really, really build up the layers to get the coverage. The coverage was there in the end, and after building up the layers, it didn't look cakey or anything like that, but the expectations, the bar was set so high that I feel like it just kind of let me down. The staying power was definitely there. I'll give it that. I did still get oily. I will be honest. People told me I wouldn't again, but I did again. So for the price, I wouldn't be running out to go and get this. I mean, it's not terrible, but I would recommend the Milani one over this one any day. And also, the first time I was shade matched wrong. This one, you can't really see it in the bottle. I think this is the first one I was shade matched at. It's literally yellow, okay? Why did I look like a Simpson when I first put it on? Why did I then have to go and make another trip just to go and get shade matched again? And this one still isn't perfect either. Fix up, Estee Lauder. Now for my last set of samples, slightly different packaging. I've never seen samples given like this before. And I'm kind of on the fence about this one. I have a couple of qualms about it. This is the Makeup Forever Ultra HD Foundation. And basically when you go to the counter and ask for a sample, they don't like take a shade of foundation, shade match it to you, and then give you a little squeezy pot of that one foundation they've matched you. They kind of just look at your skin and go, oh, dark skin, here's sort of just a range of all our dark foundations in a little capsule, so you basically just get one use out of each of them. Try them all, even though you can clearly see that 3 of them are not going to be your shade, and then come back and tell us that they weren't your shade, and then you can buy the full bottle of the one that was your shade. Considering what I went through with the Estee Lauder one and having to go back and get reshade matched to get the sample in the right colour, I can kind of understand why they do this, because you have a range of different shades and different undertones, so you can try it out for yourself and see which one you like better. But for me, when I went to get this, I kind of already had an idea of what my shade was going to be, because I found this website. I can't remember what it was called. If I do find it, I'll link it in the description box. But basically what you do is you go on this website and you enter into it all of the foundations that you already own in the shades that you have them in, and then it will search its database and then collate a list of basically then every other foundation that ever exists in the world, and then tells you in this foundation what your shade is most likely to be based on the information that you've already given it. So when I went to get this foundation, I already had an idea that my shade was probably gonna be, I think, the Y505 one, most likely. So then it was a little bit annoying for me for them to just give me these 3 other ones that I knew I wasn't going to use. I did try the foundation. I ended up actually getting 2 of these, hence why this one isn't open. But I did actually try it, and I mean, it was good, but again, it didn't blow my mind. I think it's very much comparable to the Smashbox foundation. I don't have a sample of that one because I did have one and I actually really liked it and I finished it. So if you are kind of tossing up between the two, I would say that those 2 foundations are extremely similar. Smashbox one is slightly cheaper, depending on what your budget is. I mean, when I put it on, nothing about it stood out as being terrible, but then again, nothing about it stood out as being amazing, so then I wouldn't run back and want to, you know, go and spend my money on it. I mean, it had good coverage, It had a nice finish. It lasted okay on my oily skin. Other foundations have lasted better, but again, it didn't, you know, like break apart or cake up or anything like that. So it's not a bad foundation, but it was nothing to write home about. Now we are down to the last foundation. This is the NARS foundation, not Sheer Glow, that everybody talks about. Everybody said was so good that I've never been able to find. This is actually Sheer Matte, which I didn't really know was a thing till I saw it in like a clearance store, and I was like, wow, a NARS foundation, for one, that I've never heard of, for two, in a shade that is remotely mine, for three, and it's on sale, four. Fuck it, well, they're gonna have to buy it now, I don't have a choice. This is in the shade Cartoon, and even you can probably see in the bottle, it is far too dark and far too red for me. And I knew this from the offset, so I really do not know why I bought it. I just wanted to feel like I was bougie and just have a NARS foundation in my collection, knowing full well that I would never use it. I have worn it all over my face just to see what it was like, but again, it was one of those things where I knew it didn't match me, so I didn't actually wear it outside. But I did like how it was on my face and how it kind of sat on my skin. I couldn't tell you what the kind of wear time and longevity of... Well, I've been doing this for too long. I just need to end this video now. I can't even speak. I couldn't tell you what the longevity of the foundation is like, but I have seen a lot of people use the Sheer Glow, and that lasts quite well on oily skin, so I assume that the matte version will probably work similar. Having said this being the wrong shade, although I haven't worn it out all over my face, I have kind of used it in the same way that I used the Lancome one that was the wrong shade, and kind of put it around the perimeter of my face. Where I use that one, because it's more cool tone, as like a liquid contour, I've kind of used this one sort of like a liquid bronzer. So I don't know if I might just keep this one and continue to do that with it, because, you know, I'm not hugely a bronzer kind of girl, but, you know, summer's coming up, I'm trying to look tan or whatever, so I might just have to do that, because I still spend money on it. And there they all are. Goodbye, friends. You haven't been overly terribly to me, but I guess you could have been better. So that is it for the end of this video. I did a lot of talking, so if you made it to the end, if you made it this far, give yourself a pat on the back, and as a gift, do you know what you should do? You should subscribe. I feel like you just deserve it at this point. I will put a list in the description box below of all the foundations that I've talked about in case you wanted to look into them and inquire about them even more. I'm not saying don't buy any of them. In their own rights, all of them are decent foundations. It just very much depends on your skin color, your skin undertone, your skin type, what you're looking for in a foundation. All of those are contributing factors. So just because I personally didn't like them doesn't mean that they are bad products, or that the brands as a general are bad, that you shouldn't buy from the brands. Because I may not have liked these foundations, but I still like Kat Von D as a brand. I still like Milani as a brand. I still like Maybelline as a brand. You see where I'm going with this. But anyway, I'm gonna stop speaking now because you've probably had enough of listening to my voice. So yeah, if you did like this video, let me know, and I hope that you've subscribed by now, and I will see you on the next one.